One wrong move underground, and you're buried alive. These cavers didn't just find out the hard way. Today we're counting down 5 of the most painful cave deaths ever. The Veryovkina Cave tragedy. When Sergei K., a 37-year-old father from Sochi, Russia, set out alone to descend the world's deepest cave, he told his family he was searching for the meaning of life. What he didn't tell them was that he planned to solo Veryovkina Cave, a vertical hellhole plunging 7,257 feet into the earth, buried deep in the Caucasus Mountains. It's not just the deepest cave on the planet, it's also one of the most dangerous. The walls are slick, temperatures plunge below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and sudden flash floods have nearly killed elite caving teams. In fact, just 2 years earlier, a Russian group was trapped by a flood and nearly drowned as they climbed a vertical shaft, while water blasted them like a fire hose. National Geographic filmed the whole thing. Sergei saw that documentary. He read the reports, and then he packed his bag. He'd only been caving twice, but for an entire year he obsessed over cave maps, forum posts, and descent logs. He studied every crevice, every drop. And on November 1st, 2020, he made his move. Alone, no permits, no rescue team. No one even knew he was going. He hiked in using trekking poles and crampons, stashed his cloth backpack near the remote entrance, and repacked essentials into waterproof bags. Then he clipped onto the rope and vanished into the abyss. The first 1,200 feet were a brutal maze of tight squeezes and vertical shafts. At Camp 1, he met the Babatunda Pit, a sheer 500-foot drop straight down. It's free-hanging, no ledges, no breaks. A rope system had been left behind by the Perova Speleo team. He used it to drop in, but here's the problem. That same team had used foot stirrups and ascenders to climb back out. Sergei had neither. By the time he reached Camp 2, 2,000 feet down, he was trapped. He stayed there for what rescuers estimate was 6 or 7 days, likely attempting every possible method to ascend the rope. But without the right gear, climbing back out was physically impossible. He was running out of food and time. So he made a desperate decision: descend further, hoping to find gear, stirrups, or emergency supplies. At Camp 3, 3,300 feet down, he found nothing. Still, he kept going. He descended another 1,000 feet into complete darkness, where the cave turns into a freezing wind tunnel soaked in humidity. It's believed he collapsed from exposure or exhaustion. His body was eventually found 300 feet below Camp 3, 9 months later, by a team of speleologists. So, how do we know all this? Because when they found his body, deep in the abyss, they also found his ropes, his gear, and even parts of a written log. Rescuers reconstructed his route based on rope placements, camp stops, and where his body had finally come to rest. No one knew he was missing. He had no beacon, no backup plan, just raw determination, and a fatal underestimation of what Veryovkina can do. This wasn't just a tragic accident. It was a slow-motion death inside the deepest cave on Earth. And in the end, when the cave offered him nothing, it still took everything. Sergei faced death alone in the deepest cave on Earth. But when 5 friends entered a hidden cavern locals warned about, something inside didn't let them out: the Gollum Cave tragedy. In August 2005, 5 friends ventured into a hidden, underwater cave on Y Mountain in Provo, Utah, the Cave of Death. It all started at 2 a.m. on August 17th. After dinner, the group of friends, fueled by curiosity, headed to the cave. Known only to locals, the cave entrance was submerged in water, barely wide enough to crawl through. But to experienced cavers, the allure of the secret cavern was irresistible. Jennifer Galbraith had been here before and assured everyone they could hold their breath and swim through the 15-foot tunnel to reach the inner cave. Despite her previous experience of passing out in the cold water, she was eager to show her friends the hidden spot. Blake, Scott, and Ariel agreed to go, but Joseph decided to wait outside. One by one, they entered the freezing water. The tunnel was tight, just 2 feet wide and 4 feet high. As they swam through, Jennifer led the way, but as soon as they reached the inner cave, the real danger began. The air inside was suffocating. How do we know exactly what happened inside? It's all in the investigation. When rescuers found the bodies, they were all facing the exit hole, showing that they'd been desperately trying to escape. Autopsies revealed drowning, but what killed them wasn't just water, it was the toxic air. Carbon dioxide had slowly built up inside, making it harder to breathe with each passing minute. The investigation unraveled what happened. The cave's stagnant air had become dangerous. Experts later confirmed that oxygen levels were dangerously low while carbon dioxide was dangerously high. The panic set in quickly. One caver, Brian Lamprey, shared his own terrifying close call when he nearly missed the exit. That likely happened to the group, disoriented and unable to find the opening, despite knowing it was only a few feet away. By the time Joseph realized something was wrong and called for help, an hour had passed. By then, the group was running out of air. Rescuers arrived and pumped fresh air into the cave, draining some of the water. Jennifer's body was found first, just inside the tunnel. Then came Ariel, Blake, and Scott, all found facing the exit, struggling to breathe and barely inches from freedom. In the aftermath, the cave entrance was sealed with concrete, preventing future explorers from suffering the same fate. The Gollum Cave tragedy ended in death, but it's not the only cave where adventure turned deadly. In 1983, two experienced divers entered Jacob's Well, thinking they were ready. They weren't. What happened next? You have to hear this. The Jacob's Well diving tragedy. In November 1983, Texas State students Richard Patton and Clark McConnell, both confident, experienced scuba divers, signed up for cave diving at Jacob's Well, just 30 minutes from campus. Their instructor, Don Dibble, was a former Navy diver and rescue specialist who'd already lost friends there, recovered bodies, nearly died himself, and even sealed the deadly fourth chamber with cement and rebar. Yet temptation proved stronger than caution. Jacob's Well deceives at first glance. Crystal clear water, a bottom only 25 feet down. Beneath that lies a series of increasingly perilous caverns. The fourth chamber lurks beyond a 2-foot-wide gravel tunnel, too tight for tanks and infamous for gravel collapses that trap divers forever. In 1979, 2 men suffocated there. Their bodies remained until one was washed away in 1981, the other buried for decades. Don's barricade was torn down soon after, left with a mocking note, "You can't keep us out." On the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, Richard and Clark slipped into the well at 8:30 p.m. Moving through the first 2 chambers was straightforward. Then they reached the third, where the squeeze begins. Richard removed his tank and wriggled through first. Moments later, he burst back in, panic on his face, his tank gone. He was suffocating. Clark pressed his own regulator into Richard's mouth, and they began the slow, torturous process of buddy breathing on a single tank. Each breath had to be timed, each kick measured to avoid stirring silt that could blind them. Inch by inch, they retraced their path to the first chamber, hearts pounding, lungs screaming. But fate had one more cruel twist. A false chimney, a dead-end tunnel that feels like the way out, then slams you into a ceiling. They struck it in darkness, discovered the tank was empty with a hollow clank, and realized they had just taken their last breaths. Richard, already holding his, felt the tunnel's walls close in. Clark, panicking, kicked backward through the same narrow squeeze, spurred by sheer survival instinct. With Herculean effort, Clark surfaced, 75 feet on a single breath, and gasped fresh air. He was alive by a miracle. But Richard never came up. Don Dibble arrived within the hour, heart sinking to learn 2 of his students were involved. In the morning's gray light, he guided rescuers to the false chimney. Richard's body lay exactly where Clark had described, a tragic testament to the cave's merciless design. Despite another fatality in 1984 and at least 8 more over the years, Jacob's Well still beckoned. Finally, the Hay County Parks Department granted exclusive exploration rights to a single certified team, installed a grate at 40 feet to bar recreational divers, and banned open water gear below that depth. Yet the well's legend lives on. In cave diving, experience can kill you if you ignore the rules. Slow down, mark your path, respect the darkness, and remember that sometimes the only way out isn't up. After the near-fatal ordeal at Jacob's Well, you'd think experience was enough, until Paul Hayden's flawless plan fell apart in Goss Canyon. The Goss Canyon tragedy. Michael and Paul Hayden thought they knew Goss Canyon. As kids, they used to splash around its flooded well like it was a backyard pool. That cave was a part of their childhood, just a short hike near La Cañada, California. Dry ledges, deep pools, and narrow shafts carved into stone from an abandoned 1915 water system. They'd explored it for years, but on September 17, 2000, something changed. Now grown, Paul had become a master sergeant in the Air Force. a para-rescue instructor with elite scuba training. He was methodical, careful, a real pro. And that day he came prepared, GoPro mounted, 2 hours of air, a rope tethered to Michael for safety. They'd done this kind of thing before many times, but this time, Paul wanted to push farther, explore deeper. Michael stayed in the main chamber, manning the rope and tugging it now and then to check in. Paul always tugged back, until he didn't. The line went tight. Michael tugged hard. No response. Panic hit. He ran for help, tearing into the sheriff's department with the clock ticking. Paul had maybe 90 minutes of air left. Rescue teams rushed to the scene, ATVs, divers, and first responders. They entered the cold, flooded cave system immediately. But they were already too late. Inside, Paul had reached a vertical shaft, only 3 feet wide. With his tank on, it was a tight squeeze. As he looked up, he saw it, a shimmering air pocket, a chance to breathe. He surfaced in the pocket, but this time, he didn't use his lighter. He didn't test the air. He pulled out his regulator, took one breath, and everything stopped. The camera he was wearing captured it all. No signs of struggle, no movement, just silence. Then his body sank back beneath the water. The regulator never went back in. What was in that air pocket? Carbon dioxide, likely over 10%. That's all it takes. One lungful of toxic gas and your brain shuts down. Immediate unconsciousness. Muscles limp. You don't drown. You just slip away. And when you're underwater, that's a death sentence. The full tank on Paul's back didn't matter. The years of rescue experience, the perfect plan, the backup system, none of it could save him from that one breath. Paul Hayden died within minutes, and his brother, still tugging the line, had no idea the man he looked up to was already gone. It's easy to assume that military training and scuba experience are enough, but cave diving is different. It's its own deadly world. Tight spaces, zero visibility, trapped gases, and no second chances. Even the best can make one mistake and never come back. But Paul's final dive wasn't the only time cave walls swallowed a life. Decades earlier, in May 1974, Martin Farr slipped beneath Agen Allwedd's icy depths. The Agen Allwedd tragedy. Martin Farr waded into the darkness of Agen Allwedd, driven by the lure of an uncharted passage beyond the third sump. At 23, he'd already dragged tanks through miles of crawling, squeezing past boulder chokes and climbing through dripping tunnels, just to reach Sump 3, an 850-foot underwater stretch no one had fully conquered. That day, solo, he emerged into the air pocket beyond Sump 3, heart racing at the miles of passage now mapped. He left his used cylinders behind and scrambled back to the surface, breathless with triumph and eager to return with Roger Solari, his 26-year-old friend, to push through Sump 4. Weeks later, on June 15th, the pair plunged back into the bowels of South Wales. Each carried 3 tanks. Both knew the plan. Dive Sump 3 with 2 fresh cylinders, reserve 1 for retreat, then press into Sump 4. They laid line spools, 400 feet for Roger, 1,000 for Martin, feeding them slowly through the icy tunnel. Every fin kick echoed through the claustrophobic rock. Sinus pain shot through Roger's head, but he pressed on. The electric thrill of discovery fizzed in their veins. Emerging into the Sump 4 pool, the mood shifted. The walls closed in, air pulsed with tension. Still, they slipped beneath the surface. Martin sank along the bottom. Roger floated above, buoyant and wary. The rule of thirds whispered in Martin's mind. 1/3 of air out, 1/3 back, 1/3 reserve. He'd already burned his first third reaching the pool, but the sight of a gravel wall urged him forward. He climbed it, expecting to break into a breathing chamber. Instead, he slammed into rock just 3 feet shy of the surface. His heart sank, but he refused to turn back. Curiosity lured him right another 30 feet to a dead end. Panic peaked. He signaled Roger. Only then did they both grasp that the air was running dangerously low. Roger's line ran out at 400 feet. Martin's had another 100 feet, but Roger's smaller tanks meant his third was looming. Martin turned toward the exit. Roger followed, eyes wide with dread. Every meter back felt like inches. At 130 feet from the Sump 4 entrance, Martin's primary tank clicked empty. He switched to reserve, frail, stressful dance in 1974 gear, calculating desperately that he could just make it through Sump 4 and back through Sump 3 to daylight. He surfaced with a gasp, sank to the bank to settle his racing mind and waited. Minutes stretched. 20 turned to 60. No bubbles rippled the pool's glassy surface. Martin plunged back in, tugged the guideline taut. He reeled frantically until the line ended abruptly at 430 feet, 500 feet from Roger's last signal. That clean cut meant Roger had been forced to sever the line. Lost, tangled, trapped. Roger's reserve couldn't have carried him through the silted tunnels without a lifeline. Martin knew then that his friend was gone forever. He retraced his steps through 3 hazardous sump dives and the mile of tunnels above, emerging at sunset to mount a search team. Decades passed. In 1986, explorers found Roger's body 720 feet into Sump 4. They left him there. Recovery was too full of danger. In 1987, another diver pressed on past Roger to discover the final air chamber. No further passage beyond. Named Against All Odds, it marked the end of the line. Martin never broke the rule of thirds again. He built a decades-long career in cave diving, carrying Roger's memory with him. Today, the entrance to Agen Allwedd is locked, key by permit only, and a plaque honors the friend who dared the unknown, giving the ultimate price. Cave diving offers no second chances. When you breach the rule of thirds, there's only one outcome: trapped forever against all odds. Survive the darkness? Hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell, if you dare, to face more tales where the dead don't speak and the walls never forgive. Tell us below which cave claimed you most. Then remember, down here, curiosity is a coffin, and there truly is no way out.